I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Every morning, American children have repeated this pledge to stand for patriotism, for a clear standard of right and wrong, and for freedom for all people, regardless of who they are or their circumstances. This is a noble pledge and noble principles, and I think we can all get behind those, standing for things like truth and justice. But the question is, what is justice? The word justice appears over 400 times in the Bible, and that's just in the Old Testament alone. Now, the word justice is the word MISHPOT, kind of a fun word. Let's learn about what that word means.
It's a Hebrew word, MISHPOT, pronounced MISHPOT. The exact definition couldn't be something that is straight and not crooked. The way that this plays out in the Hebrew culture is something that is fair and just.
So MISHPOT has a clear comparison between justice and fairness. And I think we get this, right? Even when we're a little kid, we don't get something that we want that someone else has, we feel the sense of injustice. And we're always going to hear that famous phrase, that's not fair. And that's really what MISHPOT is about. It's about fairness. Now, we as adults, whenever we grow up, most times we think of justice not like a little kid, but more in a place like this, in a courtroom, right? Where there's a clear standard of right and wrong established by law, and punishment or repayment is made to make things fair, to make them even. People get their just desserts, their comeuppance. Now, the word mishpat, that's not really how it's used in the Bible. Don't get me wrong, people get their comeuppance, and there is plenty of just desserts. But the way God sees justice in the Old Testament and in the New Testament works a little bit different. It's another kind of justice called restorative justice. This is where people who are marginalized or oppressed or abused by people or systems or society itself are intentionally cared for. See, God makes margin for these marginalized. He loves these unloved. He cares for people who are uncared for, and he looks out for those who are overlooked. This kind of justice, God definitely cares about. And we see that in verses like Psalm 146, where the author says this: He upholds the cause of the oppressed, gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free. The Lord gives sight to the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down. The Lord loves the righteous. The Lord watches over the foreigner and sustains the fatherless and the widow, but he frustrates the ways of the wicked. Here we see God taking care of people who others just don't care about. And if we believe in God, these are the kinds of things that we have to do as well. Making margin for the marginalized, caring for uncared people, loving people who others don't love, and looking out for those who others overlook. In our society, this can be a ton of different people. For sure, widows, but also the elderly, whom people may forget about. It could be former convicts or felons who get out of jail and who are just looking for a fresh start. It could be soldiers who come home from war and who are just trying to acclimate into normal society. It could be those who have anxiety and depression who are just too scared to ask for help. It could be those who are physically, emotionally, or sexually abused who feel like they don't have a voice. It could be those who are mentally or physically handicapped who others might overlook. Whoever it is, it's someone who God intentionally cares about, who others might be overlooking. These are the kinds of people who God calls us to take care of. But how do we do this? It can kind of seem overwhelming, right? There's too much to do. Well, Jesus gives a very clear way we can do this in a little parable he calls the sheep and the goats. In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, we see Jesus give these two people, the sheep and the goats. The sheep are these loyal followers of Jesus who, because of their acts of selfless service and care to Jesus and his people, they're rewarded. However, the unfaithful followers, the goats, they're punished. Now, when the sheep ask, Lord, what do we do to deserve this great reward? Jesus says this, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Now, Jesus obviously isn't saying here that these people gave him a glass of water or that they visited him when he was in the slammer, but they cared for the people who Jesus cared for. And when you love God's kids, it's like you're loving him. You see, to Jesus, all people are made in the image of God. So when you care for someone who's made in God's image, it's like you're caring for God himself. These are the things Jesus calls for us to do. To give the common decency to somebody. To lift them up, to give them a fair shot. To be fair. To be loving. To be kind. These are the things that we're called to do for the people that Jesus cares about. To make margin for the marginalized. To love the unloved. To look out for those who are overlooked. So that's my challenge to you. Will you be aware of who's around you? Will you be vigilant to look out for the people that God looks out for? Will you keep your eyes open for the opportunity to give common courtesy and decency and love to those that God loves? Hope you will, because if you do, you just might be doing it for Jesus himself.